The Wimmera Mallee area is definitely a great place to experience Outback country Australia. And the Silo Trail is a wonderful way to get out of Melbourne and spend a weekend. Springtime is an excellent time to visit the area because early bouts of rain force all the wildflowers into action and colour is just everywhere. Just get on the Calder Highway and head off out of Melbourne. Englewood's a small town, just a couple of hours out of Melbourne and virtually halfway to Sea Lake. It's a good little town for a stop and a break. Plenty of little pubs, bakeries, cafes and takeaway places. However, if you're burdened with a partner who enjoys taking your credit card for a visit to antique/junk shops, then perhaps another of the many small towns on the way up might be a more prudent choice. For example, the next town, Wedderburn, has a coach house, gallery and museum in which you can get a Devonshire tea, if that takes your fancy. After you go through the township of Wedderburn, keep your eye out along the left side of the road. On the corner of Turnbull's Road, you will come across what looks like an outdoor museum. More old cars, trucks and tractors than you could poke a stick at. Plus a whole lot of really rare old stuff. Now, eventually you will get to Sea Lake, which these days enjoys an influx of tourists, all wanting to visit Lake Tyrell, the largest salt lake in Victoria. Sea Lake is reasonably well set up for day trippers. It also has a pub with accommodation plus a camping ground. And if you're into a bit of free camping, there's a trucker's off-road stop right near the lake. Obviously, don't have to tell you, it's best to book ahead with accommodation. If you find it a struggle getting in anywhere, Oyun is only a short hop up the road, and they have plenty of camping, motels, hotels and apartments, etc. A lot of people like to get a good morning start by staying at the pub right where the first silo is, Patchy Wallach. If planning on staying at Patchy, definitely call and book ahead. It's a small town and the pub accommodation fills fairly quickly. And also remember when booking, advise that you're most likely going to arrive a bit late because then everybody ends up pissing around for longer than they think at the Salt Lake. And he's probably going to hate me for saying this, but when you call the Patchy pub, ask Wally if he'd mind chucking a couple of his famous Wyperfeld steaks in the warming drawer for you. And, just a word of warning, be careful at Patchy Wallach. The hospitality is genuinely country and the laid-back style might entice you to stay longer than you planned. So remember, be brave, force yourself to get up in the morning and get going because the silos will await you. Just out of Sea Lake is Lake Tyrell. You'll see it's quite large. It covers approximately 51.5 acres. Normally it's bone dry, but in the wetter months it gets some water on it, but only about 5 centimetres deep over the whole lake. That's when tourists come to take their standing on the water type pictures. A quick web search will show you that the internet is full of them if you want to have a look.
You look so good.
Now, during the day, prevailing winds tend to push all the water up one end of the lake. And then when the wind dies down at the end of the day, the water starts to flood back down the lake. It's like a really fast tide coming in, but going probably just slightly faster than you can walk. And if you look at it, it's like a strange space creature making its way across the crusty lake bottom. You know, it's really neat to watch. Another phenomenon that happens with regular monotony is poorly educated tourists who choose to ignore common sense and the warning signs by driving their cars out near the lake on ground that perhaps looks crusty enough to support them. Then they spend the rest of their time wandering around asking people if they have a rope and would mind towing them out of the lake, thus proving they also have no understanding how near impossible it is to drag a vehicle swamped in salt and silt back onto dry land. Okay, day 2, it's Sunday, and if you stayed at the Patchy pub, the first silo will of course only be just down the road from the pub, a very short and leisurely stroll. Early morning's always a good time to take a couple of pics, and then slip back to the pub for breakfast. Maybe finish off one of those Wipperfeld steaks you forgot to get around to last night. Next silo is at Lascelles. This one's a bugger to take photos of because, well, I think it's about a farmer and his wife who are having an argument because he's on one silo looking out over the farm, stewing about something, and she's pissed off around the other side of the other silo. Not quite as grumpy though. She looks more like she's having a laugh over the fence to her friend while talking about the grumpy old bastard. While you're in Lascelles, you might want to have a gander at the 45-metre long animal mural that the kids all painted in front of the Wagon Inn cabins. It might also be what the farmer was looking at. Now, at this point, consider slipping down to Wimmera, I think that's how you say it. It's just a dogleg that will only add another 15 minutes or so to your tour, but you'll get to see the snake mural on the side of the general store and visit another little town. Next town you come to will be Hopeton. There's no silo here, but it's a town with a nice little lake that has gas barbecues, toilets, a playground, boat ramp, and general picnic facilities. Also fairly unusual accommodation. Also in the township is Kuran Homestead. It's apparently the oldest genuine colonial house in the Mallee, and it's still located on its original site. Sadly, when I arrived at Rosebery, the silo was still a work in progress. It's a big job for somebody. Fortunately, it was outside fruit picking season, so there was probably no hurry with the cherry picker maybe. On the way into Rosebery, you may have noticed an old timber church. It's now the local craft and coffee shop if you feel like a stop. Another consideration is to wait until Beulah and maybe have a lemonade beside their nice little lake. The next silo is at Brim, and this one's a biggie. 4 working class heroes. Somebody should write a song about it, actually. Next town is Warwicknabeal. To some, it's the business centre of the Wimmera Mallee area. To others, it's the place of big gums shading the waterhole. To everybody, it's the place where you'll find the Wheatlands Agricultural Museum. Warwicknabeal's also got a whole bunch of historical buildings, including several 19th century pubs, an 1872 prison cell built from red and yellow gum, a Tudor-style post office, a railway station which looks okay if you're far enough away from it, and a 4-storey water tower from 1886. The town also has the Warwicknabeal Fauna Park, which is another excellent place to stop for a lemonade. There are picnic tables, barbecues, play equipment, and plenty of birds and animals for the kids to have a look at. Next silo is at Sheep Hills. And be aware it's not on the main drag, so keep your eyes out for signposts. And when you turn off to Sheep Hills, the first thing you'll come across is the local pub. It's been closed for a fair while. A bit of a shame about the Sheep Hills silo. It's sort of out of character with the other silos, and that it's the only silo that appears to include a foreigner. I could be wrong, but it seems to depict a pommy chef, a Gordon Ramsay look-alike on the very left, attempting to teach Indigenous Australians how to cook kangaroo. We come to another tidy little town, Minyip, often referred to as the heart of the wheat belt. But there's no painted silo in Minyip, and not even graffiti on their water tower. But the pubs are open, and they have Cooper's Crossing Garage along with Emma's Place Cafe. Now, for the benefit of anybody not able to have been watching Tally in the late 80s, Minyip was the filming location for a TV series called The Flying Doctors, in which Minyip became the fictional outback town of Cooper's Crossing. Now, one of the pubs in Minyip has a room full of memorabilia all about the stuff, but more importantly, all the buildings used in the series are all still located on the main street and still visitable. So you can drop into Emma's place, have a bite to eat, and take your photo to show Gran when you get home. Another interesting point, the name Minyip is actually derived from an Aboriginal word for ashes. Now, a few people know it, but I'm led to believe there is a terracotta urn located somewhere in the Melbourne Cricket Club that contains the essence of Minyip. And however, apparently, like Poms being Poms, they simply refuse to acknowledge our native cultural word and insist on calling it the ashes. Rapunyip is the next town with a silo, depicting a couple of country kids waiting next to yet another railway station that hasn't seen a train through it in a damn long time. The town's another that is a gold mine for tourists with happy snap cameras. It's got another couple of murals even, including the town's old Shire office building. Rapunyip also has Woods Farming and Heritage Museum. Sadly, I didn't get to find out about this until I finished the trip, and people asked me if I'd seen it. But apparently it's only open on weekends, but by all reports it's definitely well worth a look. Rapunyip is the last of the silo paintings, so normally this is the time you would set the cruise control and get ready to have an easy ride home. But and you might opt for a quick dash to Murtoa and the famous stick shed. It's only a 12-minute run, but the shed is only open between 10 and 2 p.m. every Sunday. So you'll have to be the one to judge whether you'll have time to do it or not. The stick shed holds the 101st place in the World Heritage List, so it's up there with things to look at. And understandably so, because it's quite an amazing sight once you're inside the shed. Murtoa is also the home to the Water Tower Museum, which is 3 floors of local historic items that include a unique taxidermy collection with over 500 odd birds and fauna, all inside a 1886 railway water storage tower. Let's face it, once you get out here into the Mallee area, you're going to realise that a weekend is just not enough to see this wonderful part of the world. Really, it's best at this point in the trip to call home and let them know you're going to be another couple of days. Then check out the other towns in the area like Rainbow and Jeparit, and if you're into a bit of free camping, once you get up there, they both have facilities on the edge of dried lakes. Check out Lake Albacutya, I hope that's how you say that, but at the high water mark, this lake covers 5,850 odd hectares. But the weird thing is it generally only fills with water once in a 20-year cycle, the longest dry period on record being about 27 years between seeing water. I love the marketing that says popular for water skiing, fishing, yabbying and boating. Now that's being positive, However, there are sand dunes to the far end of the lake for those who feel like adventure and a walk. The township of Jeparit has one of the best little camping grounds I think I've ever stayed in, right in the township. Well worth a look. And it's looked after, it's got grassy campsites, a couple of excellent, relatively new cabins, plus free barbecue and a nicely grassed site next to a bend in the river. But most of all, the thing that I enjoyed was it has the best showers ever. Cubicles so go big you could swing 30 cats around in them, and tons of hot water pouring through those old overhead shower heads, the ones that are like buckets coming down on you. There's an honesty box, and like all these small country places, it costs bugger all. Plus, there's plenty to see in the town, including a pioneer museum and a river system that requires the use of a good GPS if you feel like a paddle and need to get home. Good old Robert Menzies is everywhere, Actually, that's not quite true. His ashes are actually encased in a Scotch thistle, approximately 20 odd metres up in the air on top of a large spire. Jeparit is believed to be derived from an Aboriginal word meaning home of small birds. And that could be true because when I was there, the town was overrun by a birdwatching club from Adelaide who informed me that it was the only place they had ever sighted the very rare Australian black honeyeater. How about that? Now, just as you leave Jeparit, there's a nice little church where you might stop for a quick prayer. I suggest you just lean on the fence and pray that you'll be back again sometime very soon, because this part of the world has a lot to offer the traveller who enjoys something different, and it really is a great experience of country Australia.